Cybersecurity is something we talk a lot about. Usually it's in relation to government, the coalition, Labor parties, the parliament itself being the subject of a cyber hack before the election, or indeed some of our big institutions. But it turns out the vast majority of cyber attacks in Australia happen to small and medium-sized businesses. The Cybersecurity Centre receives a report, in fact, every 10 minutes about a cyber attack in Australia. It is a bit of a conundrum, though, for a lot of small business. They don't have the resources of big firms to actually arm themselves with the sort of cybersecurity they need. So what can they do? Well, there's been an interesting summit here in Parliament House today. The Treasurer, the Shadow Treasurer, spoke at it this morning. The Cybersecurity Centre and others all took part. The NAB, the National Australia Bank, also organised this summit, and its Chief Security Officer is David Fairman. I spoke to him a little earlier. David Fairman, thanks very much for your time this afternoon. We talk a lot about cybersecurity, but I guess not often in the prism of small and medium-sized business. How great is the cyber threat to smaller businesses?
Yeah, look, we know that cyber threat or cyber risk impacts the Australian economy by over $1 billion a year. Vast majority of that is targeted at small business.
The majority of it?
The vast majority of it, absolutely. Over 50% of it is targeted at small business. We know that because if you think about the Australian demography or the demographics of Australian business, it's very much driven by small and medium enterprise. Small and medium enterprise are also probably has less mature security programs.
Well, they don't have the resources.
Exactly, that's it. That's exactly it. They don't have the resources to throw at it. Therefore, they're probably a little bit more susceptible, more vulnerable, and cyber criminals know this.
And what sort of attacks are we talking about for small business?
Okay, common threats that we see, or common attack factors that we see: business email compromise. So when they receive an email which looks like it's maybe from one of their suppliers or third parties asking, "Hey, can you make this payment into my new bank account?" So we see that. Sometimes we see compromise or malicious emails being sent to be seen by the CEO or the CFO of the company, trying to put employees under pressure to make payments. Also scams, other types of scams, and of course ransomware, when cyber criminals take over your devices, your data, encrypt that data, and only release that for a fee.
And what is small business typically doing, particularly that last threat you mentioned there, ransomware? Are many of them just paying the money to protect themselves, and what should they do?
Look, it's varied how people react to that and how people respond to that. It really depends on what sort of strategies they've taken to prepare for something like that. If they have active backups, maybe they don't. But a lot of them, like, this is a small business. Their data is how they run their business, it's how they run their operations. Sometimes they're scared and they need that information, so therefore they will pay that ransom. The trouble with that is sometimes it makes it then known that they're vulnerable and therefore they're susceptible or more increasing risk of being hit again.
So what should they do? With any of the attacks that you've mentioned there, be it a ransomware attack, a malware attack, fake email, what if they see something that's gone wrong, what should they do?
Look, there's a couple of different, just real common basics that organisations can do. There's a lot of good information on, if you go to nab.com.au/security, our security hub, as an example, has some great practical tips for small businesses in terms of what they can do. Things like multi-factor authentication, making sure that you patch your operating systems and software regularly for security patches to prevent and mitigate those vulnerabilities. There's some of the common practices you can take.
Is there, I mean, because we're talking about small business, you mainly have a few employees, that this is a bit of an afterthought or something they put off because it's very complicated, scary,
it is.
That they don't bother to take out the insurance, I suppose, of getting a cyber security system in place.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's also, the more we talk about this conversation, the more we make people aware, the less scary it becomes. Hence the purpose of having this initiative for the National Small Business Cyber Security Summit, about trying to create that awareness and get people talking, get them more comfortable with it. Because the more comfortable they are with it, the more they can research and more more action-oriented they'll be around it.
And a final one from the bank's perspective, when do you actually decide to refund something that a business might have lost or an individual has lost through this?
It's never really clear-cut. It's very, very difficult because every situation is different, right? Every scenario is different. Have to remember that in many of these cases, we are executing on the customer's instruction to pay what they believe to be a legitimate payment.
So if they've been scammed, but they ask you as the bank to make this payment.
Correct. But ultimately, there's a lot more that we can do, that the bank can do, government can do, and the overall ecosystem can do to help protect small business and customers in general against this. It's a growing threat. It's a growing trend. globally, not just for National Australia Bank, not just for Australia. It's a global issue, and we're all working together. NAB are working very closely with our UK and US counterparts to come together with a framework to sort of try and solve for this a little bit more globally.
David Fairman, good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you very much.